We have a beautiful next keynote speaker, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Bobby Kolade. I'm giving away already something here using the catwalk. He is the founding father of BUZIGAHILL. It is a fashion brand which does not shy back from the bold statements, and he takes a passionate stance when it comes to waste colonialism. He is reshaping industry with style and sustainability. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Bobby Kolade.
You trying? Yeah?
Like you trying.
If not, use this one.
Oh.
Can I use this? Yeah? All right. This gives me something to do with my hands. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and thank you for that introduction. So today, I'm here to talk to you about something I've been thinking about a lot and how it informs our design practice. It's movement. So we're talking about movement of raw materials, which could be termed as extraction and exploitation. We're talking about movement of waste, which is basically waste colonialism. And we're also talking about movement of human beings, which could also be termed as visa discrimination. So let's go. So I took this photo in 2018 in my home country, Uganda, and I find that this is a criminal offense taking place in Western Uganda. So I'll just give you a brief description of what you can see because it's not a very clear image. In the background, you can see the foothills of the Rwenzori Mountains, an extremely beautiful natural site. In the middle, you can see fields of cotton, which are being grown by farmers in that area. So Ugandan cotton is special because it's rain-fed, which means we do not need irrigation. And in the foreground, right here, you can see second-hand clothes being sold on a plastic sheet by an elderly lady who I did not photograph out of respect, in the sun. That doesn't make any sense for me. I wish I could have just shown you this picture, because that's what it should look like. That's what it does look like if you're not taking a photo of the foreground. You know, beautiful lakes, beautiful cotton fields, the foothills of the Rwenzori Mountains. It could all be so beautiful. And I find myself saying that about our work and my country so many times. So what we have here is the cotton that has been harvested and collected from the farmers that you saw earlier on from those fields. And they are packed into bales, this image over here. And I'd like to request you to remember this form, the bale, and this color, because it will reappear later in one of my slides. So what happens to these cotton? 95% of all the cotton that we produce, that we grow in Uganda, is exported for processing in other countries. So Portugal, Pakistan, China, our neighboring Kenya and Tanzania are the biggest off-takers of our cotton. The problem is, if we're exporting 95% of our raw material, we're losing out on an opportunity to actually process and create valuable jobs. So there's movement taking place again. And I did mention to you where the cotton goes and where it's processed. Some of these countries you know very well. What happens there? We know that very well. Where do these clothes end up? There we go. So 6 euros, 8 euros, 10 euros, 8 euros, 6 euros, 13 euros. I believe there's a 4 euros somewhere there in the corner. A lot of the cotton that we produce obviously ends up as fast fashion. It's processed in other countries. It's shipped to Europe, amongst others. It's sold at these prices. I believe there's a very famous quote by Lee Idelcourt. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She asks the question, how can a garment cost less than a sandwich? She's right. So what happens to these garments? What happens to fast fashion? I took this photo in 2018 in Berlin. I mean, if the clothes can't even make their way inside the clothing containers, the collection bins, what does that have to say about who we're giving these clothes to and why we're disposing of these clothes so quickly? There is nothing dignified about this scene in a so-called highly developed country. If you ask me, it looks pretty primitive. So then what happens? Again, movement. Many of these clothes are collected by charities and middlemen and businesses that then send the clothes to the next site. This photo I took in the United Arab Emirates in Sharjah. So what happens is the United Arab Emirates has tax-free zones. You have to imagine it's like these huge complexes of warehouses where European companies, American companies, Canadian companies, they ship all the clothes that they've collected to be sorted in these tax-free zones. And who processes the clothes in these tax-free zones? Migrant workers from Southeast Asia. So I was shocked when I was there physically myself. Remember the shape of the bale from earlier on? Looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? So I was shocked to see the sheer volumes and the warehouses full of secondhand clothes. It wasn't just secondhand clothes though, right? These bales are full of towels, they're full of bed sheets, they're full of curtains, they're full of all sorts of textiles. It's not just clothing. So what happens? There's further movement. After all these clothes have been processed and repacked into bales, they are then sold and reach Uganda like this. So this is a photo of a warehouse. This is a clothing importer in Kampala. Now these clothing importers buy and order bales of clothes from these companies that sit in the United Arab Emirates or have their headquarters in Europe or in America or Canada, the global north. The problem here is that they have to meet a certain contingency. They can't just order a 20-foot container of t-shirts or jeans, because those are the popular items that will get sold really quickly. They have to order from very many different categories in order to fill the container. So you will have the bed sheets, you will have the towels, you will have the winter jackets, you will have the socks, the underwear, the curtains, mixed in this container so that they can get rid of the unwanted textiles. This is what I like to call, or what we have to call, smuggling. Because if somebody just wanted to sell what they knew they would be able to sell, they should be able to order that, right? I mean, would anybody here order a pair of jeans from me and I send you a t-shirt? Would you be happy? No, you would send it back to me. Makes sense. So what happens next? These clothes are then sold to vendors. This is a scene from Owino Market in Kampala, but it could be anywhere on the African continent. It could be in Kenya, it could be in Accra. You heard earlier on from my colleagues in Accra. This is the end of the supply chain. What started perhaps in Uganda as raw cotton ends up in Uganda at a market. Now, the vendors are the ones who suffer the most, because when they buy a bale of clothing from an importer in Uganda, the bale is titled, let's use the example of t-shirts, right? But they don't know if all the t-shirts inside the bale are good enough to be sold off to somebody like myself, to our company, to reprocess, because many of them are stained, they're torn, they cannot be worn anymore. So this is an act of smuggling in waste that could not be processed or sold or worn in Europe, and mixing it in with a few pieces that could be sold. And what do we have at the end? Maybe only 70% of the bale can be sold. and the rest ends up being thrown away. So all of this movement of material, all of this smuggling, all of this extraction is quite overwhelming. And when I moved back home to Uganda 6 years ago, my idea was to actually work with Ugandan cotton. But then I found out all of this. And it's been a few years of research and exploration. And I could end the story here, but fortunately, there is something that design can do. And this team of young Ugandans and our German intern on the right is saying, sorry. just to be clear. So this team, we took this photo in April when we celebrated our 2nd anniversary. And this team is saying, no thank you, return to sender. So what we do is we redesign secondhand clothes and we just add value to them by spending a lot of time with them, analyzing them. I'll just go back to, oh, you can't go back, can you? Yes, you can. Yes. Yes, the clothes can go back as well. So we spend a lot of time really analyzing clothes, washing the clothes, adding value to them through different processes, and really, I'd like to say, giving them a new identity, new value through design, and we sell them back to the global north. So this is our latest collection, which came out about a month ago, and I'll just take you through some of the scenes in our studio, just so you see some of the processes that we go through. This is how a bale arrives at the studio. This is a bale of shirts that was imported from the UK. So you'll get about 200, 250 shirts in one bale. And then we start really sorting them. We use the floor a lot because when you're designing the way we do, you need a lot of flat surfaces and nobody has that much space for 100 tables. So you have to imagine that we're then trying to match shirts that kind of have the same feel to them, the same weight, the colors. Do they really work together? Which one has stains? Which one doesn't have stains? I believe this dress might be for sale upstairs at the pop-up shop. Then this is for track pants. So the track pants I'm wearing right now are also made using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pairs of track pants. So a tailor will spend a lot of time just analyzing them and trying to match them, put them together in the right way. We also, extract materials just from the t-shirts that can't be used for any of our other styles. We cut them up into strips and we weave them and we plate them. We apply them onto other garments. So this is, for example, the hoodie I'm wearing. It takes a while to really make the right selection of the weights of materials and then put it back together. This is a scarf that we make using the scraps from previous garments. So we don't throw anything away. These are crates in which we store all our waste. Every single item of clothing or every offcut we keep, and we use the offcuts to inform our design of further products. My favorite method is this, what we call dismantling. So we take an item of clothing completely apart, every single seam is undone, which takes forever, and then we put it back together, and it's this idea of giving the garment new identity. This is embroidery by the Milaya Project in northern Uganda. So it's by a group of South Sudanese refugee women who we send our clothes to, and they, embellish them with their beautiful embroidery and send it back to Kampala. Every item of clothing we create has a passport label, and we show the provenance of the garments. So for example, here it's sourced at Owino Market in Kampala. And we like to think that, with passports, you can send something out into the world, right? That's what passports do. They give you a means to travel. So this is what the garments look like. This is our online shop. And I could end my talk here because this is a very nice way of showing what design can do. But I will unfortunately have to end here. This is the site or a view from our studio in Kampala. This is Crested Towers, and you can see that the tall tower on the right is where the European Commission sits. So the problem is the European Commission isn't very interested in the movement of upcycled products. Under international trade and European Union trade laws, if you make a product in Uganda and you export it to the European Union, you enjoy what they call preferential trade treatment. That means you don't have to pay duties because the European Union is interested in helping the development and growth of industry in Uganda or in other African countries. However, according to the World Trade Organization and the European Union, if you make a garment using a second-hand garment, it is not deemed as a product made in Uganda. If you make a product using curtains, towels, bed sheets, rugs, a second-hand bed sheet from the Netherlands, if you use that bed sheet to make a pair of trousers and you sell it to the Netherlands, you will not pay duties. But if you use another pair of trousers, or 8 pairs of trousers, or 7 as we use for these, you pay duties. So sometimes it feels like, yes, you can do a lot with design, but design sometimes has borders. And the European Union has outdated laws which prevent us from actually growing our business. And I will end with this. The passport on the left is my passport. I was very fortunate to have, or I am very fortunate to have a German passport, which is why I'm here. The passport on the right is a Ugandan passport. And anybody who's been reading the news will know that in the fields of art and culture, it's becoming increasingly difficult to bring people from the African continent to Europe. So I've had difficulties coming with my team. It's very difficult to organize collaboration and to bring people from Uganda, for example, to here, because the assumption is that Africans will end up staying here instead of going back to their jobs at BUZIGAHILL, for example. Make it make sense. I don't know. Thank you for listening.
Give it up. Incredible story. I would say it's like welcome to Fortress Europe. You have so much to talk about in terms of your weaving the awareness into the desire. If I may just, I'm wearing one of your pieces. Could you elaborate on what am I wearing here?
Yes, so this jacket we got from a bale of suits that was originally from London, and we sent it to the Milaya project in northern Uganda. As I mentioned earlier on, South Sudanese refugees embroidered this by hand using their traditional technique. So when they fled the civil war in South Sudan, they carried their property in, I keep coming back to bed sheets. So they carried their property in bed sheets, you know, the way you can just throw everything in a sheet and put it on your back. And then it turns out that these bed sheets were actually embroidered with their traditional embroidery. And so it was one of the cherished objects that they carried with them when they fled the war.
Yeah.
So the Milaya project kind of encourages them to use these techniques for new products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to return to the Return to Sender project, if that's okay, and maybe unpack a little bit how can we activate ourselves as the audience, right? I mean, it's very clear that there's different movements are not allowed, others are halted. And I was wondering if you could, let's say, maybe unpack a little bit how we could ramify these, well, very painful and confrontational awarenesses.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know. I feel like everybody in this audience is a friend. Everybody's I hope, on my side, on our side. So it's like sometimes I feel like the people I need to be talking to are the people sitting in those towers. Mm-hmm. I think the best way that anybody here who's a friend can support us is just, invest in products from the African continent. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Purchase. It is for sale upstairs. Yeah. For those of you who did not find it yet, all the way up to the stairs is a beautiful little pop-up store. I would want to talk a little bit about how you work a lot with the community, different kinds of community, and how do you actually make sure, for instance, that everybody is part of the whole. There's so many things going on, right? You use different media, you have a podcast going on, there's the awareness, and how do you engage with the community and, for instance, fair pay or intellectual property, or how do these topics come into your considerations?
I mean, it's very straightforward and easy to interact with the community in Uganda because we're just a very, we're always just talking to each other, and it's very different, the kind of interaction. Everybody kind of knows each other's business, and we are very involved with the vendors at the market. It's very important to build relationships with them so that they are almost helping us to build our buffer stocks, putting things aside that they know we need. Mm-hmm. Working with the tailors are co-designers, all of the selection of materials and the pieces that are matched to make each garment. I don't do that, I just approve them. So it's at every step of our production, you have a very strong sense of collaboration and responsibility and ownership. So it's not just, this creative designer, creative director sitting there ordering people around. It's really more about, at each step, somebody taking ownership for their role, really.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
You did. Well, there's, I think, multiple angles, and you answered it via one.
And of course, we work with them, with the Milaya project. This is really just the beginning. We've been doing this for 2 years now.
It's amazing that you already have such an outreach in such a short time. I wanted to maybe lastly touch upon this question of the bale going, if I'm informed correctly. So our, let's say, good intentions are packed, then shipped. Then they already arrive at a certain cost. That cost is on the rise, if I am informed correctly again. And I was wondering, to what extent could maybe local communities speak up in terms, for instance, I understood that in the marketplace, as you mentioned, you collaborate with the sewers. If garments are not made to fit, they can make them made to fit. So if we could all somehow think through legislation, is that the way to go?
Yeah, all of this is super highly political. It's a highly political issue. It's honestly, it's 100% waste colonialism, and it can only come from the European Commission, honestly. Yeah. I feel like it's very difficult I can encourage everybody here not to buy fast fashion. Yeah. I can encourage everybody, if you are going to get rid of your garments, do not throw items that are completely stained or torn into these collection bins, because they will 100% end up in Uganda. Yeah. If your clothes are torn, if they are stained, if they are no longer wearable, throw them in your garbage can and let your municipalities take care of that waste. Don't donate it. Only donate pieces of clothing that can be worn by another human being, because a black body has the same value as the white body here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Give it up for Mr. Bobby Kolade.
Bring me along, hey.
Ikenna, back to you.